through the dark street, clutching his chest as if something heavy weighed inside him. His white shirt was soaked, sticking to his body. His breath came short, desperate, almost choking on fear. He stumbled, caught himself on a lamppost, and whispered through trembling lips, "Please, just stop." But the smell didn't stop. The foulness that came from his own mouth filled the air like a curse he couldn't escape. The stench clung to him like a second skin. He gagged, tears mixing with the rain as he dropped to his knees. In the reflection of a puddle, he saw himself, a man who once had everything but now looked like a ghost haunted by his own secret. Before we find out how this man ended up on his knees, gasping for mercy from his own breath, make sure you hit subscribe, like, and comment below, because what you're about to hear will make you question the true cost of wealth. Hagged. His name was Bara Ajani, and years ago he was the pride of Adura City. Owner of one of the biggest car dealerships in town, Bara was the kind of man whose smile could light up a room, but whose mouth could empty it in seconds. People called him Mr. Dragon Breath behind his back, though never to his face. He was rich, influential, and proud, the kind of man who believed that money could silence every truth, but the truth always finds a way to speak. Bara's car yard, Ajani Motors, stood on the busiest street in Adura. His cars glistened under the sun like rows of sleeping beasts, Bentleys, G-Wagons, Range Rovers. People said if you couldn't buy a dream from Bara, you couldn't buy it anywhere. But the moment he opened his mouth, every dream turned into a nightmare. His breath carried a smell that no human nose was prepared for, something between burnt plastic and spoiled beans. Still, people endured. They smiled, laughed, and nodded, they pretending not to choke. Because in Adura, money spoke louder than any odor. Women came and went from Bara's life, 7 of them in 2 years. One fainted during a date at the Lagoon Lounge. Another spent a night in the hospital after trying to hold her breath for love. Yet Bara thought they left because they feared his success. "Not every woman can handle a man of my class," he'd boast, laughing as his driver nodded politely, fighting tears from the fumes. But even arrogance has limits. One afternoon, a famous politician visited the yard. 10 cars, the man said proudly. Bara's grin widened. He leaned close to discuss the deal. The man's smile faded instantly. His eyes watered. He coughed once, then twice, before shouting, "No discount! Just pack 10 cars for me, please!" and stormed off. Bara laughed all evening, convinced his negotiating skills had struck again. That night, he looked into the mirror and smiled. "They all wish they were me," he whispered. But his reflection stared back with something else, something dark around his finger. A gold ring. The only thing he ever inherited from his late father. It was heavy, old, carved with strange black lines that shimmered faintly under light. Bara believed it brought him luck. He never took it off. Weeks later, she walked into his life. Her name was Leela, a woman whose beauty could silence thunder. She wasn't there to buy a car, she was there for the man behind the cars. Word around town said Bara was the richest bachelor in Adura, and Leela had decided that his wealth would be hers. Her friends warned her, "Leela, that man's mouth can kill a mosquito in midair." But Leela only smiled. "Money has its own fragrance," she said. When Bara saw her that day, his jaw dropped. She was tall, elegant, her perfume drowning the air in sweetness. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, nervousness. He walked up to her with a grin that could melt wax. "Good afternoon, beautiful stranger," he said. The words hit Leela like a slap. Her smile froze. The smell was unimaginable. Her eyes watered, but she forced herself to stay still. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly. By the end of that day, she'd agreed to dinner. Not out of love, but greed. That night, she told her friends, "If I die, tell them I died for the money." Their first date was at an expensive restaurant on the island. Bara wore a white suit and a new perfume. Leela wore red, sitting like a queen who had no idea she was walking into purgatory. As Bara leaned close to whisper compliments, the air around her shimmered with heat. Her eyes watered, but she smiled anyway. "You're the most unforgettable man I've ever met," she said, and meant every word. Within months, Bara proposed, and Layla, after a dramatic pause, said yes. Their wedding was the talk of Adura. Gold drapes, diamond-studded cake, guests who arrived in convoys. But when the pastor said, "You may now kiss the bride," Layla began coughing violently. The crowd murmured. Everyone knew why, but Bara just smiled proudly, thinking his bride was overwhelmed with love. That night, he gave her a mansion and a car as gifts. "You are my queen," he told her. But queens don't always love their kings. Leela tolerated him for weeks, each word from his mouth feeling like punishment. One evening, when he surprised her with dinner, candles, and roses, he spoke softly, eyes shining with love. "Leela, you've given my life new meaning," he said, tears glimmering. "You deserve the world." When he leaned in to hug her, she broke. "Enough," she shouted, stepping back and covering her nose. "Bara, your mouth, it stinks. I can't breathe when you talk. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I've tried, but I can't live like this." Bara froze. The room fell silent except for the faint hiss of candle flames. For the first time, his pride cracked. He sat down slowly, eyes empty. She stormed upstairs, leaving him in the quiet darkness. That night, Bara didn't sleep. He thought about every moment people had flinched when he spoke, every laugh that followed him when he left a room. And for the first time, he realized the truth. By morning, he was brushing his teeth like a man possessed. He brushed till his gums bled, rinsed, brushed again. When Leela came down, she found him making breakfast, smiling shyly. "Good morning, my queen," he said softly. "I made pancakes for you." Leela sat slowly, staring at him. He looked so innocent, so hopeful. She picked up her fork and froze. The familiar smell crept back like smoke under a door. She coughed, pushed her chair back, and muttered, "God abeg." She walked away, leaving him staring in confusion. That evening, she found him surrounded by dozens of toothpaste tubes and bottles of mouthwash. "What's all this?" she asked. Bara looked up with red eyes. "I just want to be free," he whispered. "Tell me what else I can do." She shook her head. "You've done enough," she said coldly and walked away. But Bara wasn't done. The next day, he went to the hospital. 3 doctors examined him. They checked his teeth, gums, throat, everything. Finally, one doctor returned, puzzled. "Mr. Ajani," he said, "there's nothing wrong with you. Your mouth is clean. Your breath smells perfectly normal." Bara blinked. "Normal?" he asked. "Then why does everyone run from me?" The doctor sighed. "Sometimes what people smell isn't physical." Bara left, confused. He drove home in silence. His wife barely spoke to him. She slept in another room, used separate dishes, and when he tried to talk, she texted him instead. The mansion that once echoed with laughter was now silent. At night, Bara sat alone, brushing his teeth till his gums bled, whispering, "God, what did I do to deserve this?" One Sunday morning, an old friend, Komi, came to visit. Bara poured out everything, how no doctor could help, how his wife despised him. Komi listened quietly and said, "My brother, I know someone who can help. A seer deep in a town called Oluma. She helped my cousin when doctors couldn't." Bara hesitated, but desperation has no pride. The next morning, he packed his car and left for Oluma. He drove for hours through dirt roads and forests, but just before he reached the village, he stopped to ask for directions. That was when the truck hit him. The crash was brutal. When Bara woke up, he was in a hospital bed, bruised and broken. His hand was swollen, his gold ring still glinting faintly under the white lights. The nurse by his side gasped as he suddenly sat up, eyes wild. "Take it off," he shouted. "Take it off, please." She tried to pull the ring, but it refused to budge. She tried again, harder. Finally, it slid off his finger and dropped to the floor with a faint clang. Bara fainted. Hours later, when he woke, something was different. The air around him felt lighter. He opened his mouth slowly, exhaled, and smelled nothing. For the first time in years, his breath was clean. He wept. He didn't yet know that the ring, the one his father had given him, had carried the curse all along. But Bara didn't feel lucky. He felt hollow. He returned to his mansion in Adura, limping slightly, his body weak, his spirit quieter than ever. Leela barely looked at him when he came through the door. She stood at the top of the stairs, dressed in silk, her eyes sharp. "You're back," she said coldly. Bara smiled faintly. "Yes, my love, I'm back." "Hmm." She turned away and walked back to her room. No hug, no warmth, just silence. In the days that followed, Bara spoke little. He spent hours sitting by the window, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. He didn't shout at his workers anymore. He didn't boast to his friends. The once loud and proud Bara Ajani had become a man of whispers. But peace had a strange way of settling into his life. The stench was gone, but so was the noise. His wife no longer shared his bed. They ate separately, lived like strangers, and when she needed something, she texted him from another room. He didn't fight her. He was tired of fighting. Then one night, While walking down the hallway to his room, Bara stopped when he heard voices. Leela's voice. Soft, secretive, dangerous. Baby, just give me a few more days, she whispered. I'll find where he keeps his valuables. Once I have them, we'll disappear together. Bara froze. His heart dropped like a stone. She laughed softly, the sound slicing through him. That man is finished. He's a ghost now. Always quiet, always sad. I can't stand him anymore. I just need to find his money and that ring he's always protecting. Then we're gone. Bara stood in the darkness, his breath slow, eyes empty. He didn't move until she hung up. When he finally walked away, he didn't feel anger, only a deep, painful calm. That night, he sat at his desk and pulled open a small drawer. Inside lay the gold ring, the cursed thing that had stolen years of his life. He stared at it for a long time, then smiled sadly. So this is what you want, Leela, he whispered. Then you shall have it. The next morning, Bara began his plan. He made sure she overheard his call to an imaginary collector. He spoke loudly, pacing the room. Yes, yes, the ring is priceless. My father gave it to me before he died. It's the secret to my fortune. I'm keeping it locked in my room until things calm down. No one must touch it. Lila, pretending to scroll through her phone in the hallway, froze. Her eyes widened. The secret to his wealth? A priceless ring hidden in his room? That night, her mind didn't rest. She tossed and turned, her thoughts burning like fire. By evening, Bara made sure to leave the house. I'm stepping out for a business meeting, he said casually, grabbing his car keys. I'll be back late. All right, she said sweetly, forcing a smile. The moment she heard the main gate close, Leela rushed to his room. She searched everywhere, under the bed, inside drawers, behind the curtains, until finally she found it. A small wooden box hidden under some files. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside lay the ring, glowing faintly like something alive. Beside it were wads of cash, a few diamond cufflinks, and gold bracelets. She gasped. So it's true, she whispered. This is the source of his power. Without hesitation, she grabbed everything, stuffed them into her designer handbag, and called her lover. Meet me at the gate in 10 minutes, she said breathlessly. I've got everything. At exactly 10:30 p.m., she slipped out of the house and met her boyfriend waiting in a black car. Drive, she said, giggling as the car sped away into the night. From the balcony, Bara watched the taillights disappear down the street. He sighed deeply, his face calm, almost peaceful. May the ring choose its owner, he whispered. The next day, Adura woke up to chaos. Somewhere in a faraway city, a woman had run into the streets screaming, tearing at her clothes, her hair wild, her voice echoing through the night. It was Leela. The ring, now dull and dark, clung to her finger like molten iron. She scratched, pulled, screamed, but it wouldn't come off. People said her skin burned wherever the ring touched. Within hours, she began to speak nonsense, her eyes empty, her laughter echoing through the market. Bara, she kept saying. Bara, forgive me. Bara. Her boyfriend vanished that same night. No one ever saw him again. Meanwhile, Bara's peace returned like morning after a long storm. The heavy odor that once followed him was gone forever. For the first time, people could sit close to him without flinching. Customers began returning to his car yard. His staff whispered in relief. Ogadon change, they said. The smell is gone. But Bara didn't boast this time. He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile much. He had learned something pain had carved into his bones, that not every wealth is worth the price it carries. One evening, Comey visited him again. My brother, he said softly, you look different. Bara nodded. I'm free, Comey. But freedom came too late. Comey frowned. You mean the smell? Bara shook his head. The smell was never the real curse, my friend. Pride was. The ring only fed it. It took losing everything to understand that. They sat in silence for a while, the air between them heavy with understanding. After Comey left, Bara went to the backyard and opened the wooden box one last time. The ring lay inside, black and lifeless. He stared at it for a long time before taking a hammer and smashing it into pieces. The air shifted slightly, as if something invisible sighed in relief. He buried the fragments behind his house, whispering, Rest there, trouble no more. Weeks passed. Bara began rebuilding his life quietly. He started donating cars to orphanages, sponsoring students, and helping families in need. People thought he was trying to buy forgiveness, but those close to him knew. He was trying to breathe peace into others, the same way peace had finally returned to him. One morning, a young journalist came to interview him. Sir, she said shyly, you used to be known as the proudest man in Adura, but now everyone says you're the most generous. What changed? Bara smiled faintly. Pain, he said simply. Pain teaches faster than praise. The journalist looked at him curiously. And your wife? Where is she now? Bara's eyes darkened for a second. Where greed always leads, he said softly. Far from peace. That night, alone in his living room, Bara sat with a cup of tea and stared at the city lights. Somewhere out there, he knew Leela was still wandering. He had heard rumors, a mad woman in the streets of Umura wearing a burnt ring on her finger, muttering his name. He never went to see her. But sometimes when the wind blew through the window, he whispered, May you find mercy, Leela, the same mercy I found. As the months rolled by, Bara's life found a new rhythm. The cars still sold, the business still thrived, but he spoke less, smiled gently, and lived humbly. One Sunday morning, he visited his father's grave for the first time in years. The air smelled of wet soil and palm leaves. Bara knelt, placing a small flower on the headstone. Father, he said quietly, I carried your curse for years without knowing, but I forgive you, and I forgive myself. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude, not for wealth, but for wisdom. Back in the city, people still told the story of Bara Ajani, the man whose mouth could stop fights, whose breath could clear a crowd, and whose pride nearly destroyed him. Some laughed, some pitied him, but all agreed on one thing: no blessing that smells of pain is worth keeping. And somewhere, deep in the markets, whenever the wind carried a faint scent of burning metal, old traders would shake their heads and say, That's the ghost of the cursed ring. It's looking for another proud soul to wear it. Bara never heard those whispers. He was done with curses. He was done with pride. In the quiet of his office one evening, he looked up at a picture of his old self, grinning, arrogant, drenched in luxury, and smiled sadly. Then he turned off the lights and walked away, leaving the ghosts of his past behind. To this day, people in Adura tell his story to their children, not as a tale of wealth, but as a warning. Because not every gold shines, and not every gift from our fathers is meant to be worn. If you watch till this point, my friend, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that remind us. Sometimes the real curse isn't what you carry, it's what you refuse to let go.